In the world of high-stakes tech, the rivalry between the US and China over AI supremacy has pretty much been defined by bans, tariffs, and this relentless tech Cold War. But what if I told you a secret deal struck right in the Oval Office just changed all the rules of the game? Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech. Today, we're breaking down the secret deal that just changed the rules of the entire AI race. Okay, let's just dive right into this. That quote right there, that's the bombshell. We are talking about a private meeting between the US president and Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang. And the outcome? A deal where Nvidia gets to sell its chips to China again, but, and this is the wild part, the US government gets a cut of the profits. I mean, it sounds completely unprecedented, right? A private company striking a revenue-sharing deal with the government just to get into a foreign market. It totally upends the whole narrative of a simple, straightforward ban. So what is actually happening here? All right, let's unpack this whole thing. We're going to start with the details of this shocking deal. Then we'll zoom out to the wider chip war strategy. We'll look at how China isn't just surviving, but actually thriving under all this pressure. And we'll try to understand the massive global infrastructure build-out that's really at stake here. And finally, we'll ask what this all means for the future of tech. Are we heading for one world or two totally separate systems? So let's get right into the heart of it, this new deal. You have to understand this represents a huge pivot in US policy, moving away from just blocking everything to a new kind of managed and, profitable competition. Just for some context, the US has been tightening the screws for a while now, trying to stop China from getting its hands on the most powerful, cutting-edge AI chips, the ones you need to train really advanced models. This deal, though, it carves out a very specific and very lucrative exception to that rule. So here's how this whole pay-to-play model works. It's basically 3 steps. First, the US government gives Nvidia the green light to sell a specific, less powerful chip, the H20, to Chinese companies. Second, Nvidia, the biggest chip maker in the world, gets to jump back into a market it really can't afford to lose. And then, the final crucial step. Nvidia pays a percentage of its revenue from those sales directly to the US government. And this detail just shows you how direct this whole thing was. According to reports, this wasn't some drawn-out policy discussion. The negotiation happened right there in the Oval Office. The president apparently started by asking for a 20% cut. Jensen Huang countered, and they landed on 15%. This isn't just policy, folks. It's a high-stakes business deal between a superpower and a tech giant. So naturally, this brings up the big question. Why the sudden change of heart? Why go from this hardline ban, which was supposed to cripple China's AI ambitions, to a deal that lets American tech back in, as long as Uncle Sam gets a piece of the action? Well, to understand that, we need to look at the bigger picture. Okay, so let's see how this deal actually fits into the broader geopolitical strategy. Because this isn't just about one company or one chip. It's about who gets to write the rules for the next 50 years of technology. And there you have it, straight from the Treasury Secretary. The primary fear isn't just about China's military getting stronger, it's about them creating a rival tech ecosystem. The US wants to make absolutely sure that its technology remains the global standard. So, letting some lower-tier chips in, under their control, is seen as a way to keep a US footprint inside China and stop a complete takeover by domestic players like Huawei. And this really gets to the heart of it. The two countries have fundamentally different playbooks. The US is using a classic stick-and-carrot approach. Ban the best tech, but then tax and control access to everything else. China, on the other hand, is playing the long game. They're doing the exact opposite, using things like export tax credits to make their tech cheaper for the world, while pouring money into their own domestic companies to become totally self-reliant. And you want to know the crazy part? Look how fast this all went down. This wasn't some slow, drawn-out policy shift. In April, the H20 chip was banned. By August, after a flurry of intense negotiations, the ban was gone. Just poof, replaced by this revenue-sharing deal. It just shows you how fluid and reactive this whole situation is. Policy is changing month by month, not year by year. But while everyone in Washington, D.C. is debating strategy, what's actually happening on the ground in China? Well, the story over there is one of surprising resilience and really rapid adaptation. This quote from Jacob Cook, a CEO who works directly with businesses in China, it just captures the mood perfectly. There's this massive gap between the political headlines and the day-to-day reality of business. For a lot of people, the decades-long relationships and the sheer size of that market mean they expect to just weather this storm, just like they always have. And the numbers, they totally back this up. Just look at a giant like Tencent. In their last quarter, international gaming revenue shot up 35%, and their ad revenue grew a really strong 20%. So, despite all the geopolitical drama you hear about, the core business for these Chinese tech titans is still incredibly robust. So, the big question is, how are they pulling this off? Well, first, companies like Tencent are saying they've stockpiled enough chips for their immediate needs, especially for inference. That's the using of AI, not the building of it. Second, that old saying is true. Necessity really is the mother of invention. We're seeing powerful new AI models from companies like Alibaba and DeepSeek that are truly competitive on the global stage. The pressure from the US is actually speeding up China's push to build its own, completely independent chip industry. Okay, now let's zoom out one more time. This chip war isn't happening in a vacuum. It's all part of a much, much larger global race to build the fundamental infrastructure for the next 50 years of technology. I love this quote from the CEO of CoreWeave, a major cloud provider, because it just puts the sheer scale of this into perspective. We're living through a once-in-a-generation construction boom, but instead of railways or highways, we're building a planet-wide network of data centers and supercomputers that's going to power literally everything in the AI era. And this infrastructure race is also changing how the computers are being used. For years, the big challenge was training AI models, but now, for the first time ever, more than half of all AI computing power is being used for inference. That's the day-to-day work of running the apps, answering our questions, and generating content. That completely changes the economics of the entire industry. This huge demand for inference also means that no chip goes to waste. The newest, most powerful GPUs, yeah, they're used for that bleeding-edge training. But last year's models, they're perfectly suited to handle the enormous and growing demand for inference. Even chips from generations before that are still being snapped up. The entire hardware stack is being fully utilized, which is exactly why even the dumber chips that are allowed into China are still so incredibly valuable. So, this brings us to the final and most crucial question. All of these forces, the political maneuvering, the corporate strategies, the technological shifts, they're all pushing the world towards a major decision point. When you boil it all down, we're standing at a fork in the road. One path leads to a single, global ecosystem, where data and innovation flow pretty freely, and a common set of standards lets technologies work together everywhere. The other path? That's a forked future, where we have two parallel competing tech universes, a US-led one and a China-led one. And in that world, data gets trapped behind national borders, and technologies are built on totally different, often incompatible platforms. And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. The fight over Nvidia chips, the revenue-sharing deals, the race for self-sufficiency, it all comes down to this one question. Will artificial intelligence develop as a shared resource for humanity, kind of like the internet was in its early days? Or is it destined to become the central battlefield in a new era of great power competition? The answer to that is being written as we speak. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.